501c3.
That'll be
It's
good.
not the same
Yeah.
right now. It's got
Oh, I see.
less.
So you need BSC projects, oh, maybe this one.
I don't know.
It's like the other, yeah, it's a drawing. Funny how I can recognize
Welcome
the
everybody to
drawing
the
here.
Yarmouth Conservation Commission meeting. Today is Thursday, December 7th, 2023. This is to formally advise that as required by General Laws, Chapter 30A, Sections 18 through 25, and pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, signed into law on June 16, 2021, as extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, the Yarmouth Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting at the date and time noted above. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative public access provided on the notice of meeting available on the Town of Yarmouth website. Again, this is the Conservation Commission meeting for December 7th, 2023. Our first order of business is a request for determination of applicability for Paul DeMarco, 8 Winchester Court, proposed addition on land subject to coastal storm flowage and the buffer zone to a vegetated wetland. Hi, come on up here to the seat here and just briefly state your name and then briefly describe your project, and then we'll turn it over to questions from the board.
Okay. My name is Paul DeMarco. I'm seeking approval for an addition I want to put onto the back of my house where I have a 1-foot deficit of the 50-foot buffer at a corner of the addition.
Okay, questions from the board? No? Brittany?
My only concern would be, I would hope to add a condition but for behind the fence, since it is really close to the wetland, probably about 15 feet, that no future dumping or cutting should take place behind the fence.
Is it trash that's there, or
It's just leaves.
yard waste? All right, anybody in the audience have any comments or questions on this one? Anybody on Zoom have a question about 8 Winchester Court? Raise your hand digitally. I see none. Unless there's any further discussion among the board, would somebody like to make a motion for a -2 and a -3 with the condition of no dumping or cutting yard waste behind the fence?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carries unanimously. So a negative determination for you is actually a positive thing for you. It means that you don't have to do any further filing with the Conservation Commission. You can go ahead and do what other permits that you need to pursue. In a couple of days, sometime toward the end of next week, just check in with Brittany, and she will have the determination that says you're all set with us.
Okay, fantastic.
All right, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next order of business, another request for determination of applicability for Town of Yarmouth, proposed invasive species management at Taylor Bray Farm, Alms House Road, Meadowbrook Conservation Area, the Brad Hall Blueberry Patch, and around Run Crowell Pond. I believe this is Brittany.
This is us, yes.
Okay.
So this project is a town project from the Conservation Commission, and we, in the past, have found that invasive species are a priority, especially this year's rendition of the Open Space and Recreation Plan. It was our #1 priority to manage invasive species. So we are proposing to manage invasive Phragmites in 8 areas of town. These areas are highly visited and have both community and ecological benefits. So the areas are Taylor Bray Farm. Here's the visual. Oops, that's Taylor Bray Farm. All right, we'll start with Run Pond. There's 2 areas on Run Pond along South Shore Drive where there's parking for the hotels across the street. There's an interpretive sign there, but the view is completely blocked by Phragmites, and we'd be proposing management there. And on Run Pond Road, where they're the lowest point in the road, it's actually part of our low-lying roads project. There's Phragmites on either side of the street, but mainly on the eastern side. Meadowbrook Conservation Area, has been problematic in the past. When you walk all the way down to the boardwalk there, it's accessible, but the views are completely blocked by Phragmites on mostly the eastern side. Taylor Bray Farm, a Phragmites management project was completed in 2021, and it is looking amazing over there. The salt marsh is already coming back with strength, and we are just hoping to expand that portion a little bit to the west to increase the view corridor from the lawn, and also to hope to keep that Phragmites at bay for much longer. Lastly, on Alms House Road, this project was also done in 2021, but there's some small areas where Phragmites are starting to sprout back up, so this would be follow-up management and spot treatment to keep that under control so it doesn't become another issue in the future. And the last parcel is the Brad Hall Blueberry Patch, located at the bottom of Swan Pond. This is mostly handled by DNR, and there's a blueberry patch there for public use. The Phragmites is encroaching from the south and the eastern sides, and they want to keep that under control so that the blueberries don't get choked out. So these will be taking place in bordering vegetative wetland and the buffer zone to salt marshes, mostly. And we've done this sort of project under an RDA in the past in 2018.
Okay, questions from the board?
It's needed.
Without a doubt.
Pretty effective too, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the work that has been done on the various sites is actually, a lot of it's really looking really nice, so it's a continued use of that, and it'll look even better in the future, so. Brittany, you have any comments on this one?
No
The audience? Anybody on Zoom have any comments, questions for invasive species management, Taylor Bray Farm, Alms House Road, Meadowbrook Conservation, Brad Hall Blueberry Patch? If not, would somebody like to make?
One
Yep.
comment I'd like to make. Now, all of this is pretty much being paid for by the CPC funds, Brittany?
No, so the project is approximately $70,000. We currently have $30,000 in funding from the CEDC Tourism Revenue Fund and $10,000 from the Conservation Fund. The remaining I have applied for CPA funding for, and CPA has voted favorably upon that, but it won't be determined or allocated until after spring town meeting, where they will vote officially on that. So the remainder of the funds, so around $30,000, $35,000 would be from CPA.
I had forgotten the details of it because, of course, I'm on the CPC committee, but I want to thank you also for bringing this forward to that committee and trying to get this done. You did a good job presenting it, and I hope it goes through.
Thanks.
Okay. If for no further discussion, would somebody like to make a motion for a -2 and a -3?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Next order of business is a request for an extension for SE 83-2215, Hyannis Marina, 21 Arlington Street, proposed replacement of 2 sections of wall, replacement of bulkhead with vinyl sheeting, and to carry out various maintenance and repair activities with wetland resource areas. And Wayne, this is a first extension request, right?
Yes, although I was given an automatic extension because of the COVID Extension Act, I guess it is.
Okay, and this is just to
My
finish.
request.
This is just to finish up the work, right? Is what you're
Yes.
looking to do. Okay.
Yeah. It's,
K-U-R-K-E-R.
So we're just getting we're getting administrative issues here.
Sorry, I'm taking notes, so I needed your name.
okay. Well, for those of you that are less familiar than others with Hyannis Marina, the dredging we do, the improvement dredging has been done, but the maintenance dredging is ongoing, and it'll be ongoing as long as we have the steamship authority cruising in and out, because they drench us with sediment, and we've got to stay on it. I think I've missed maybe 1 or 2 winters in the last 20-odd years. The hardest part of the job's done, which was replacing the whalers in front of the existing bulkhead and sheathing it all with plastic. the plastic, the theory is that the plastic with dirt behind it is going to starve the wood from oxygen and cause it to decay less, and certainly it won't allow the borers to get in there and eat the wooden bulkhead up that was put in, a while back. And that the settling tank part was done. That settling tank allows the material from the power washing to go in and sit for quite a bit of time before it, so that any bits of bottom paint drop to the bottom, and then that gets pumped out and taken away. That's worked very well. And for the record, we built it substantially larger than was designed, just so there'd be no question that the stuff had more than enough time to settle, so we wouldn't have to look back at that. And so I've not done the shed yet, because the shed, it's a bit of work. As we've been trying to make this a little bit more hurricane resistant, et cetera. The last two sheds we did, we put a foundation in that comes up the walls, so if the hurricane comes and goes, it doesn't rip the utility, the electric and plumbing out of it and all that sort of thing. So we've got 2 sheds left, and the other ones were done. And there's perpetual maintenance out on these docks, and there's perpetual maintenance on the grounds, because that's the nature of being in on the harbor and having the tides with us every day, and the storms, not to mention the customers who we need. So I don't know how long this board gives extensions for, but some of this will just go on and on. And I can answer any question in regards to the on and on part that you might have.
Well, I would suggest that if you do the main part of the work is done after this extension, then I would suggest that if it's just for ongoing maintenance, that you could probably handle that with the COC and ongoing conditions with the COC. So
yeah, and recently we did put in a COC for anything that was open here, which I think was I got my color coding right. We're closing out, we've asked to close out 1843, and whatever wasn't finished on 1843 is taken up by 2215, which is the one we're here in on.
Right.
So I've been doing this for this is year 47 for me over there. I've been doing it that way for quite a long time, because unlike a house or something like that, this is just, the maintenance is as never-ending as anything you ever saw.
Yep, okay. All right, questions from the board?
Nope.
Brittany, any comments?
No comments.
All right, would somebody like to make a motion to extend the permit for 3 years?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. All right, thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good for another 3 years. All right, next order of business is a continued notice of intent for the SC 83-2405 Dan Ojala, Down Cape Engineering for Claudia and Tim Norton, 13 Webster Road, and after the fact filing for clearing, grading, and construction of walkways, retaining walls, and other landscape and subject to coastal storm flowage. Let the record reflect that the quorum for this one is everybody except for Rick and Jack. Okay, so Rick and Jack won't vote.
13 Webster,
This is 13 Webster.
can you vote? Did you see that?
Yes, Pet is all set.
All right, I thought it was something else.
Good evening. Dan Ojala from Down Cape Engineering. With me is the applicant, Tim Norton. Pretty straightforward. There'd been some work done out here. There was some concern it might be in a riverfront, but we determined it's not a river in this area, so it's just land subject to coastal storm flowage. There's no real performance standards. You're working on those, I see, with some notes, but in this case here, we were asked to address the runoff from the pool patio, and some native shrubs are the only two items remaining. We sized a drain for a 25-year storm, so there won't be any more water running off the patio, and that's in the southeast corner. It's a 4x4x4 wash stone trench with a grate, a very subtle low point. It was determined by careful survey. So that will take care of any runoff issues. And then in the northwest corner, we added 5 native shrubs up in that area there. So whereas there aren't any specific performance standards, I think would represent that this is a substantially improved plan over last time. We're infiltrating all the water that wasn't caught with the existing area drains. And it's some native plantings, and be glad to answer any questions if you have them.
Thanks, Dan. Questions from the board?
I would like to make a statement that I did read or see the previous meeting on this, and I signed a form acknowledging that.
Ben Mullins?
But other than that, I have no questions.
Okay. Anybody else? Nothing? Brittany, anything?
No questions.
All right, anybody in the audience on this one? Anybody on the Zoom? Raise your hand. Go to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
I'm Allison Cadillac. I live behind the project on 18 Brewster Road, and I've been to all these meetings. I appreciate all the work that the Conservation Commission and Brittany have done on this, and I understand that nothing else can be done, but it still makes me sad when I look out my kitchen window and see all the devastation. Thank you.
Thank you. May I understand that? All right, anybody else in the audience? Anybody on Zoom, raise your hand digitally. I see none. Unless there's further discussion, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Two opposed, is that
Yep.
right? Okay. So it carries 3-2.
Who's the third aye?
Ed.
Who's the third eye? You?
Me, not,
Okay.
it's not you or Dave, it's not you or David, how's that?
Okay.
Excellent. We appreciate your time on this. Thank you very much.
sign this?
No, you don't sign it.
You don't sign
You can sign it.
I mean, you can sign
Sign
it.
it. You don't sign it.
I think one of you needs to sign it.
Sign it.
We
Has
need
to
4
sign it.
signatures
Sorry.
for DEP, please.
I signed the last one, so you can sign this
Send
one.
it back and I'll sign it.
All right.
Give me a minute to go over it.
Okay.
Go ahead. Okay, next order of business is another continued notice of intent for SE 83-2408, Catherine Ricks, Coastal Engineering for Goldville LLC, 679 and 681 Route 28, proposed bulkhead with tow stones for shoreline stabilization, land under the ocean, coastal bank, riverfront area, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. This one, for the quorum for this one is everybody except Pat and Jack.
Good evening, Catherine Ricks with Coastal Engineering. Just here on behalf of the client to go over a couple things, I guess, that were comments last time during the hearing about the parking lot and the planting plan. So the parking lot, once it's replaced after construction, will not go any further than the original parking lot. We're not trying to extend it out at all. And then the planting plan, I don't know if it's easier to see here, if Brittany.
It's pretty blurry, sorry.
It's okay. The planting plan, what we've done is Virginia rose spaced offset and every 36-inch on center, and then plugs of the little blue stem. And that's all the way from the building up behind where the wall is placed in. There's going to be some little blue stem behind the wall in the fill area. Above that, we were going to keep it the way it is right now because there's, the clients have said there's a lot of public that go there to fish off of where the top of the revetment is there. So we were mainly keeping the buffer from the building up to where the wall is going to be. I don't know if there's any questions on any portion of the,
Okay, questions from the board? Oh, Rick?
Refresh my memory, will you reinstall or install stone to match the armoring north and south of this problem?
so it's not going to match the exact armoring that's north and south of it because there's not enough substrate out far enough to do a full revetment in front of it. So there's going to be some smaller stones placed at the toe, and then where you can place some right now, and the sheet pile. We're not able to extend it out that far because a lot of that has eroded away.
If they hadn't waited so long, they might have been able to do it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
From my notes from our last meeting, we talked about the irrigation being removed. Is that still happening?
Correct. It's supposed to be removed.
Okay. And I thought there was something to do with the park. Trying to remember where they have the barriers. Are they gonna?
The only portion of the parking lot that's going to be put back is what was there before. The little chunks that have come off. During construction, maybe a few more pieces will come off, but we're not extending it any further. It's just going to go to where the original parking lot would be.
That's it for me.
Okay, anybody else?
I had a question. It says the concrete dead man is an option. Is that what you're going to go with, or is that another?
One contract, we've talked to a couple contractors. One wants to do the concrete deadman, the other one wants to do the helical. So it really,
Okay, it's either the helicals
option.
or the, okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? You're all set, Brittany?
Yep.
Anybody in the audience?
I cleared out the place. I don't know.
Yeah. Is it quiet now?
Anybody on Zoom? If not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the project with special conditions?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Ellie?
Yes.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Well, no,
Oh,
it's
sorry. Carries 5
5 to
five
nothing.
to
5-0, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's the other one that couldn't vote on this?
No Pat, no Jack.
No Pat, no Jack.
That rhymes. Does.
Does right.
But you weren't here for the
All
original.
right, next order of business, a request for certificate of compliance. We've got 4 EZs, so request for certificate of compliance for SE 83-1905, 2 Compass Drive, SE 83-2254, 15 Shore Road, SE 83-1843, 21 Arlington Street, and SE 83-2216, 148 Windward Way. All of those are easy with no problems. Do I have a motion to issue the certificates of compliance for SE 83-1905, SE 83-2254, SE 83-1843, and SE 83-2216? All those, whoops, sorry, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
Okay, that was 5.
Thank you.
Do you want to go?
Probably the interior lights? No, your running lights are... Thank you. Chairman, do I have time to go out and turn my lights off?
Actually, I think you can
you do
sign
that?
on those. You can sign.
Good idea.
That would make you really, you really want to go through your.
This is COC.
page quicker
Yep.
then, won't it?
I don't have jumper cables, make sure that it's not dead.
I have some.
I found out the hard way that my jumper cables are missing.
All right, wait for Rick before I pass this on.
Yeah, we can hold on.
Make sure you get all four.
Hmm?
Make sure you get all four, please.
That's supposed to mean.
Sometimes you miss some.
And when we're away.
Actually, we'll send him down and we'll get him to sign.
You want me to send it down?
Yeah, go ahead and just sign it.
Okay.
Send it down.
Paul, when Rick comes back, just tackle him and let him sign those. Thank you.
Oh, actually, I should wait anyhow, so.
Okay.
Just gonna
that's
take
that.
a-
There's also this one you need to sign.
1 or 2 minute break here. We'll be right back.
Stand by for station identification.
Good, we could do a
How many people
Geico
remember
commercial.
that?
Jack's got a great name for this time of year.
It'll get worse, huh?
Come February, we start swearing at them.
I'll start being called John.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sign those last two.
With
No,
Pat is-
they're coming down. Just
I need
stay there for a
to
second.
sign.
All right, next order of business is enforcement. The first one is for 50 Park Avenue. It's an unpermitted patio and rinsing station on land subject to coastal storm flowage and to a buffer zone to a
Where's the fourth one?
I think you signed the first one.
BVW.
One,
I already shot that one.
2, 3. I don't know where this fourth one is.
We should have 1905,
Mr. Bishop,
2254,
hold his pen.
1843, and 2216.
Nice pen.
All right, so we've got
All
our
right.
4 signatures on 4.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so Kieran.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Should I go to Brittany first to let her,
Welcome, all.
okay, go ahead, Brittany.
Sure. This project is under a permit 2305, and they are in the buffer zone to a coastal bank and a bordering vegetated wetland. When, upon their occupancy inspection, I noticed that they had installed hardscape and a rinsing station that weren't on the original plan, that were close to the coastal bank and the BVW. So I sent them a notice asking for them to provide an as-built and to amend or just for us to approve a revised plan for the conditions on site with additional mitigation. So they submitted this plan 2 days ago for us to review. Looks like there's 814 square feet of additional hardscape from the original plan, and they have provided 814 square feet of mitigation on this current plan.
Okay. Well, my only comment here would be that I think if it's 814 feet of new hardscape, there should be 1,600 square feet, which is a 2-to-1 ratio. It's within the 50, right? 50 to 100.
Of the bank.
Yep.
Yeah,
And it's on the bank, right?
it's on the bank.
Yeah, so I personally would like to see a little bit more mitigation, well, a little bit, twice the amount of mitigation. It's just my comment. Anybody else?
I agree.
I agree.
That's what we usually ask for.
Sound good?
Seeing as everybody has quite their opinions on this, it's not likely I'm going to change anybody's mind by asking for something different. We are providing the 814 square feet. A portion of this 814 square feet is the paver walkway in front. There is 152 square feet of that. What's unusual about this is that even though Park Avenue is a public road and paved, there is a coastal bank that comes off of that because that's where the first break in flood zone is. Even though there are houses between this and the ocean, Park Ave is between this and the ocean, between this and the house and so on. The coastal bank on the backside is an unusual coastal bank in that it is facing north, which is away from the water. So typically when you're looking at coastal banks, you are facing the ocean flooding. This is actually 180 degrees away from the ocean flooding. It basically comes around the sides and it backs up. The water comes around and then comes in. So this is a coastal bank by topography. Functioning as a coastal bank, you really wouldn't say it's functioning as a coastal bank because it's not protecting from that original flooding. And that was the reason that we had proposed 1-to-1 mitigation as opposed to 2-to-1 mitigation. It's not your standard coastal bank where the water's flooding in and hitting that bank so the bank protects the house. So that is the reason we came up with 1-to-1. It's just not a standard location where your bank is 180 degrees away from the ocean. And I understand that I probably won't change anybody's mind, but that's the consideration. Even 1.5-to-1 would be an ideal situation as opposed to the 2-1 if the board were to feel favorable.
Yeah, I mean, your argument is not, it's not unfounded, Kieran. I think you do still have the additional hardscape within the 50 to 100, and to the BVW, don't even take into account the coastal bank. And so I'd say, I mean, that's what I would ask for if work was being done. Well, that's what we ask for currently. We're gonna boost that up a little bit, I think, with new regulations. But I think 2-to-1 is more than fair for this impact in the 50 to 100. That's just my. I totally agree. I see your point 100% with the coastal bank issue. It just doesn't sway me as far as the BVW goes.
Well, is this a performing coastal bank? That's the question. I mean, is it just a landscape feature? Is it really, doing what it's supposed to do when you think of your typical coastal bank? To me, it's more of a landscape feature than a coastal bank.
Yeah, I'm not arguing your point. I think I tend to agree with you on that one. But my concern is more to the buffer to the BVW then. So.
Okay, just one other point. That 152 square feet of paver walkway in front, would it be worthwhile just to take that away from the 814 and then just double that number? Because this is, what I'm talking about is this paver walkway, it's adjacent to the
balance
roadway.
front minus the 814 minus the 142, is that what you're saying?
And then multiply that number by 2, so I'd be giving you around 1,400 or some number in that region.
I could live with that.
I think that's reasonable. I think that's reasonable.
I can live with that.
I would also just, I think the commission would prefer to see the 50 of this wetland also filled in. I don't know how much square feet you're going to be working with instead of this back corner. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think it would make more sense to do it that way.
It was just getting closer to the house, so we were just trying to leave some space between the house and the edge of what's already lawn. We can definitely fill it. We're going to be basically doubling the amount of mitigation that's there that we're showing on those horizontal lines. So we can definitely add in the majority of that in that section, and then maybe a little bit more in the lawn area as well.
Yeah, I think I think that would be the preferred way.
So based on that, if the commission were to vote favorably, we would just submit a revised plan.
Yep.
And that would suffice for the.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Does anybody have any other comments or questions on that one?
No, I think that's a good compromise on everything.
Yep. Yeah, so would give us a revised plan showing that, and I think we're all set to go then.
Great. Thank you.
All right, do you need?
Are you comfortable with me signing off on the revised plan as long as he meets those?
Yeah, I mean, unless you don't want to do it. That's what
That-
Yeah, I think if you want to sign off on that, that would be good. And did you put any kind of a?
I did put a date on the violation notice. They were a little late, but that's okay. They're here now.
You want to put a date on to have
Revised plan?
have the planting done? I mean, you should probably put a Not going to take you that long to do this plan, is it?
It's not, it's more a case of we can't plant now.
So like
it'd be-
January 31st for the plan and then for the revised plan, and then finish or do the planting by May 31st.
I have a planting plan in next week, that's no issue at all.
Okay.
Just a planting plan by what date? Planting,
May 31st.
31st, yeah.
You're good with that? Brittany?
That would be great.
Okay, so do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved. Well,
Is there a
I'll
second? Okay.
Rick and Ellie.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. All right, thanks,
Thank you,
Karen.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your
Thank you,
time.
Karen.
Thank you, Brittany.
Dennis?
Do you need to sign anything?
There's nothing to sign, though.
I'm not going to have it ready tomorrow. I can either mail it to you next week, or if you want to, I can call you when it's ready for you to pick up. Sure.
All right, next order of business, another enforcement hearing for 317 Weir Road, unpermitted vegetation removal, regrading, and hardscape within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland and pond. Brittany?
Oh, I should have included, okay. So this is on 317 and 353 Weir Road. The property, I'm just going to pull up the mass mapper. The property is surrounded by wetlands on the north and east sides. And there was a report of trees being cut, so I went out last week to the property. One of the homeowners was on site, and I was able to talk to her a little about what was going on there. So the area violation was approximately over here. This area is noted on DEP wetlands as open water. It's a pond. It may be a wetland in dry times of the year. And there's also a wetland on the east side. It all connects. The owners of 353 take care of the bog. But the area across the street from this driveway was cleared. Let me get to those photos. And the homeowners have done some regrading, and they said they have removed between 7 and 9 mature trees in that area abutting the wetland within the 35-foot buffer. Here's some photos.
That's right on top.
there's Lonnie in there too.
So this is from the lawn area. The wetland is over here, and the clearing went all the way up down that bottom area. This is from the road. There's some regrading. They built up a berm. They intended on replanting the area with some plants that had already arrived.
Those weren't for down below.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. Questions from the board for Brittany?
Brittany, if I remember correctly, wasn't there also an issue about within the 50-foot buffer and closer to the grass?
Yes, I think we should take this in portions. Let's deal with the
Okay.
initial removal and regrading on the northern side first.
Did you prepare any kind of a list, an enforcement conditions list or anything?
I did. I had just emailed, I emailed a draft version. I didn't mail one. So in the enforcement that I would propose drafting is a restoration by a SERP or a wetlands specialist in the area of disturbance on this side. And there was also some intrusions into the 50-foot buffer this isn't accurate, but it comes around right about at the property line here. And so everything south of this wall, or outside of this wall is basically the 50-foot buffer, and all of the activities outside of the wall are not permitted. There's a patio over here. I don't know what was over here. Are they trampolines?
Mm-hmm.
Trampolines, and some additional stone walls on the bottom within the 50.
All right, so it looks like it was a disturbed 50, obviously, then, right?
Yes. So there's the patio in the 50 and the trampolines. Other than that, it's just the lawn, and there's a small chicken coop and some yard waste. And this is the garden on the northeastern side.
Most of that rock wall that you just showed was there. Some of those rocks I wouldn't even be able to move. Where that garden, yeah, those big suckers. Some of those little ones were placed forever ago, but yeah.
Now we're back on the eastern side.
And what was that? Was that a fire pit that you were showing before, or?
Over here.
Yeah, what?
I think it's just a patio.
Yeah, all that other stuff's movable structure. Yeah, that fire pit's on wheels, and that I can move.
But the patio itself that's in the 50-foot, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the only other thing that was in, the draft enforcement order was a straw water or silt fence immediately on the edge, because there's open, disturbed soil that could wash into the wetland.
And that patio was not permitted, correct?
That's correct. They had a permit for the house that they closed in 2015, and the patio was installed after that.
That other area is called a pond. Why is it being called a pond?
It's just a pond/wetland. It's shown on whenever these aerial images were taking, it was open water. So
Does it make a difference? Pond, wetland, pond?
Not as far as
they're both under jurisdiction, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But
I'm just curious,
the boundary line.
because it's flumed, part of like our operational cranberry bog. I'm just curious if it mattered, or I'm sure it's all the same, but.
Okay, so I assume you're looking to try and keep the patio where it is?
Yeah, I'd love to.
And it's not 35, right? It's greater than 35?
I don't think so. I don't know. The wetland was delineated a long time ago.
Say that again. Was it greater than what?
35 feet away.
35 feet from the...
No, definitely not. Yeah, I'm happy to remove it, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is a long time ago, so we don't know the exact
Yeah, it's
boundary of the
down,
wetland.
kind of where the belly of that wetland is, it's down in there, yeah, where Brittany is circling.
Okay, so, I mean, that all is grass in there and disturbed 50 anyhow. I guess at this point, we're looking more for restoration of the 50, correct?
Yeah, where it was disturbed just now.
Yeah, we're more than happy to plant, you know, restore that to however you guys see fit.
Well, I'd say definitely restore it, and then, and you'd have to come up with some sort of a plan that's gonna show how, you know, the planting plan for what you'd like to plant, native vegetation. And if you wanna keep the patio, then you're gonna have to mitigate for that, which would be in addition to, it wouldn't be part of the restoration of.
Which is fine.
Okay, so you'd have to come up with, I mean, at that, I would say you should be looking at, I mean, I would go with 3 to 1 on this one, but, because it's not, we haven't changed our regulations yet, so.
Mm-hmm.
But a 3 to 1 ratio for mitigation.
On the square footage of the patio.
Yeah.
Definitely, that's fine.
What
Do you have
about
a
the
question?
trampolines? Remove them? or mitigation for those?
It's tough to say. I mean, I think they need to just have the wetlands delineated
Yeah.
to see how far away they are.
Yeah, you would definitely have to, you're definitely gonna have to get a plan that delineate the wetlands and show a plan that puts them, some sort of a survey plan that puts it on, puts the wetland boundary on a stamped plan, so that we know exactly what the distances are we're talking about, where the buffer is.
Yeah, so for this one, probably have them come back to the commission with the plan, so that if there's anything we have to change.
Yeah. Anybody else? Do you understand what we're looking to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love not to have to move the trampolines.
Well, your first order for that is just to do the delineation and get a plot plan that shows, a survey plan that shows where the boundaries are and where
The structures
everything
are.
is on the property, and that way you can, then you at least have something to talk about whether or not, is it within 35, is it within 50, is it within 100, that sort of thing.
No, so all the area that you're considering to be disturbed, will that be planted? So like, there's always been a working road around that area, just the same as all the bog. So does that have to get replanted, even if it's in the 35 or 50?
No, if it's the road is part of the farm operation,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, so no, you don't have to do that.
This one through
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, it's always been there.
But what was it? I mean, what was the surface?
What was the surface?
Yeah, was it just sand?
Pine needles?
Just dirt, yeah.
Whatever falls, yeah, I mean.
I don't.
So there's a flume to the left there, and then there's another, there's the dike that would, so we need to control both these little sections of the bog. We kind of use this bog as recharge. We dump stuff in there when not that we do a bunch of fertilizing anymore because it costs money and there's no money in cranberries.
Well, the road itself is long established, so I don't have an issue with that, just leaving it as it is.
I'm just curious, like,
But
what area?
restoring the area that was
100%.
most recently disturbed.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then, like I said, coming up with the mitigation for, if you plan on trying to keep the patio, then you would have to come up with a mitigation in addition to that restoration.
So I think what they're asking for, if you come back with a existing conditions plan, then they can have a informed conversation about what's within the 35 or what's within the 50, and then kind of work it out from there.
And you can use that plan then as the basis of your restoration, for restoration planting and everything else, so.
okay.
Okay?
Does all, within the 50 foot, is it all native plants?
Yes.
Yeah.
All native plants within 50? And outside of the 50?
I mean, within the 100.
Within the
it's all-
100?
Yeah, it's supposed to
all
be within
native
100,
plants.
so.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to see the existing conditions plan and delineation done, what's today? Today is December 7th. December 7th, sorry. January, February, March.
There's no
I mean, the
there's no question
delineation.
about that road, I'm very familiar with it.
Oh, yeah, I am very familiar with it, so I don't have an issue with that, but I'm just trying to give you a reasonable amount of time to get a survey done with all this and delineation. So I'd want to say like March.
For just a survey and a delineation, because then they need
Survey
to
and
get
delineation,
someone to
that's-
do the restoration plan as well before spring.
February 1st.
I mean, I would say try for March 7th, March 5th, let's go with March 15th, because I think you're going to be pushing hard to get that.
14.
March 14th?
Yeah, I'm happy.
We'll aim for March 14th.
Get someone out there, I'll get it done as soon as I can.
Yeah, the faster you start working on it, the sooner they'll get out. But, you know, surveyors and everybody are backed up
Oh, yeah.
like you wouldn't believe, so. And then have a planting plan by, we'll assume those dates are all good. Planting plan by April 14th. And then restoration by May 31st.
Let's just make sure that April days somewhere we can put them on a meeting.
It's what?
Yeah, so it would be April 18th for the hearing on May 2nd. For the restoration plan.
We have a hearing on the 2nd, that's give enough time for planting by
Doesn't not really.
31st.
That does not give you enough time for that.
So, but why are we like separating it?
Well, I mean, I don't need to see another plan until I see the restoration plan. So, I mean, if you want to put the restoration plan and everything for March.
Yeah.
Give them a little bit more. Give them 2 more weeks on that then.
Okay.
Okay, so now so do the existing plan?
March 28th.
Planting plan by March something?
An existing, with delineation, existing plan and restoration plan.
We'll have them both next visit, you know, I don't wanna
By
drag it out.
March, what is it, March?
14th.
So it would be March 21st for the April 4th hearing.
March 21st for April 4th, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so by March 21st.
And then planting by May 31st.
And then planting by May 31st. I think it's still going to be tight, but.
We can do June 31st. It doesn't get hot in June.
Yeah, I mean.
There is no June 31st.
June 30th.
June 30th.
Gotcha.
And silt fence or straw wattle.
It's relatively flat there, so I think you can probably get away with.
So you just want it on the edge of the bog there? You want, because I gotta get those stumps out of there.
Yeah, the edge of wherever, like right before you put those rocks in. Where's that photo?
Behind the stumps.
As soon as the soil becomes disturbed and open, we want to put the straw wattle past that, so none of the open soil washes into the well in there.
Yeah, so you're putting that right along the edge there?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah,
on
so I'd
those
say.
rocks.
Yeah, silt fence and 6-inch wattle is enough, I think.
If I install that, can I remove those stumps?
Well, I mean, you can do this. You
Yeah.
can do the stumps first, right?
Okay.
I mean, as long, you know, I mean, if, I wanted to give you a day or two, but, you know, the only problem is that,
I'll install the water before I move the stumps.
yeah, and then, because just in case you can't get to them sooner rather than later, so I would just, I'd try and get the wattle in by tomorrow afternoon, yeah, because you're supposed to get some really heavy rain over Sunday,
Weekend.
Monday.
Yeah. So you said silt fence and a wattle.
Silt fence and a wattle?
Just 6-inch wattle staked through the silt fence.
Have you installed a silt fence before?
Yeah.
So just make sure when you're digging it in, I've had a lot of problems with construction people that when you dig a trench, all of the soil goes on the disturbed side, and then you pile it back on the silt fence so that none of the soil is on the wetland side.
Ready? He's a 3rd-generation builder. He knows what he's
It
doing.
doesn't matter how many times.
I have a question when you get a chance.
Are you all set?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess first of all, I'm just curious as to when this work took place. I know there was also a $300 fine. I don't know if there's a requirement for additional fines or if that's all. And the other thing is, very often I think I've been involved with discussions here where when extensive work like this has been done, that the commission has required at least a consultation with a land management company. I know the family has evidently been in the construction business or something for a long time, but this is not necessarily their bailiwick. So I was wondering if there was any thought on that, if they have to consult with somebody who has more expertise in terms of restoring this disturbance, or what?
I did have that in my draft enforcement order, is that they needed the wetlands restoration plan to be from a wetland specialist.
Yeah, I mean, that'll cover it, and I don't think, I mean, it's not required.
Nine trees. Is you're saying extensive, or like the regrade?
Absolutely.
It seems to me that it is. It says 9 mature oak trees. So I would think that when a planting program is presented, that it will require some pretty large trees to be replaced. You know, we've had that kind of discussion also with this commission about the diameter of trees to be replaced. You can't put little dinky trees after having a great big mature tree. So there are those kinds of questions that not everybody is prepared or has the experience to deal with. And so, you know, again, I think, again, just from past conversations with this commission, with folks, that there's often a requirement to consult with somebody like a Crawford Land Management or somebody else. I don't know too many of the names. And even the work that you're talking about tomorrow, you know, evidently it's going to go forward. It has to be done very, very carefully, as I think Brittany has already highlighted. So I just wondered about those kinds of things, if that's all being taken into consideration.
Well, I think the fact that you're asking for a wetland specialist to do all the work that's one thing. That's good. I don't think in this case you need a SERP certified company like Wilkinson or Crawford under this circumstance. But a wetland specialist should be able to do all of this planning and carry that out.
And will they be able to recommend the size trees? Because it seems like that's a...
Yeah, they will.
Definitely.
They will put together a plan that includes different caliber size trees as well as as some shrubs and ground cover.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean.
Again,
the
when was
reason a
this
lot of those
work
trees
done? I'm
came
sorry.
down was because they were dead and overgrown and clustering one another.
I see. But when was that done?
The trees?
When was the work done that you just, the
Maybe
disturbing?
a couple weeks ago now,
Okay, thank you.
month maybe. Ish.
Yeah, and just so you understand, just because they're dead doesn't mean they don't have a value ecologically. So.
Yeah. No, I agree. But I do have a 9-year-old and 11-year-old.
All right, are we all set then?
Trees.
We have to vote on it?
Yeah, we have to. Do I have a motion? Anything further?
No.
Okay. You understand what we're looking for?
See if anybody up there.
Would somebody like to make a motion to issue the enforcement order as discussed?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Who seconded that, Jack?
Jack.
Opposed? Carries unanimously.
So I'll send you next week a copy of the enforcement order with all the details. And I can send you a list of wetland specialists who can help you with the restoration plan, and surveyors and everything who can get you started on the delineation and the existing condition plan as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
All right. Next order of business is a public meeting continued from November 16th to look at we're looking at the wetlands protection regulatory updates. This is to reviewing a second draft of regulation updates reflecting minor revisions from an earlier public comment on November 16th. So we've all had a chance to look at so we discussed it on the 16th. We've Brittany has gone through and made those updates as we discussed, and we've all had the opportunity to take a look at the regulations that were dated November 29th, 2023. Does anybody have any comments, concerns, questions on that draft then? So the one we should be, I think we'll be voting on? All set? Brittany, anything to add?
Should I go over the highlighted portions, or we already did in last meeting?
Want to give us a quick run,
Sure.
rundown?
We changed all references from jet skis to include personal watercrafts and jet skis. Lifts, including jet ski lifts and boat lifts, are included in the 200 square foot combined float size limit. There's an extra paragraph of explanation under land subject to coastal storm flowage that highlights the need for coastal resilience and justification for these regulations. We clarify where you can find the FEMA flood hazard zone. It's under the National Flood Hazard Layer, where the V zone is also known as the VE zone, and where the boundary between the area of moderate wave action and the V zone is the limit of moderate wave action found in that same flood hazard layer. A clarification under one of the land subject to coastal storm flowage requirements is where the 6 inches of clearance below fences only apply to solid fences or stockade fences and not open fences. And finally, clarification under wetlands replication, where both wetlands filling and destruction is prohibited in areas in Natural Heritage Endangered Species Program, and including diversity of species and height variation for our mitigation areas. Those are the 6 things that we discussed last time to change.
Great, thank you, Brittany. Any further discussion among the board? Anybody in the audience who would like to say something? Kind of figured he might have. He looked like he had something to say.
Yeah, he did.
I've been in front of you many times for docks and piers and floats and jet ski lifts and all of those items. A jet ski lift is generally about 100 square feet if you have a double jet ski lift. If you reduce the ability of somebody to have a jet ski lift as well as the 200 square foot float, you're basically eliminating the float. 100 square foot float isn't going to do any good. So would it not be more worthwhile to consider a jet ski lift up to a certain size or in a location that is behind the float so it does not interfere with the traffic of the water, as opposed to restricting the area combined between the float and the jet ski lift? The goal is to get these jet skis out of the way. If you make it harder for people, they're just going to be tying them up to the back of the float as opposed to taking them out of the water on a regular basis. And I see this as being, I think it will cause more problems than it will solve problems, because I think the last time I did a jet ski, it was 9 feet wide and it was 12 feet long approximately. So that's half of the entire float regulation that's available for somebody. That's just a killer. That's making it too difficult. And people on the water spend a lot of money in this town. You know, I don't think we should be making it more difficult for people to access the water, and I think that would be a negative. You know, I think that cutting your size of your float in half, where we already have a very tough regulation of 200 square feet. There are a lot of towns out there who do not have a 200 square foot regulation. This is really restrictive as it is. And now you add this on top of it, I think it's just basically going to take people out of the water. And we are a water community. And we have a lot of people who live on Bass River, who live on the ocean, who spend a lot of money. And I think this is really, really going to hurt them. And the big thing about a jet ski lift is it gets out of the water. It takes them completely out, so it doesn't interfere with potential shellfish or anything else underneath a float, like a float would do, because it's raised up out of the water. So I think this is really, really substantial in killing people being able to put in floats on their property. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody have anything else?
I mean, I think the commission should address that comment.
I mean,
Just, some of these jet skis, like you mentioned, the one you just mentioned, is the size of a boat, a small boat. Why do they have to go out of the water instead of just being, it's just stupid, but why can't they just be tied to the side of the?
With the jet skis, because it's kind of an impeller, you try and keep it out of the water as much as possible, and Ellie probably will answer better than I could, but you try and keep it up out of the water so those shellfish can't get in or into the jet ski, the jet engine, shall we say, of them.
Okay.
And typically they're about, typically the vessel itself is about 8 to 9 feet long and about 2.5 to 3 feet wide maximum, so maybe 32 inches wide. But it's when you stack two of them side by side and then on a lift, which needs to be a little bit bigger.
It's to keep the propellers out of the water as much as possible. That's the idea.
The jet engine out of the water.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I just want to comment. It seems that it is a dilemma. Karen brings up some good points. I think they've been talked about at this table a few times. And the thing that I personally am concerned with is that this comes out as an anti-jet ski kind of a requirement. And I don't think we want to go there. You know, for what's left of the Cape Cod Times, we want to see Yarmouth as opposed to jet skis and keeping things out of the water. But I wonder if even some of the points that are made about the restrictive nature of the dock requirement, and maybe it's for another time, and maybe 200 feet these days isn't, 200 square feet isn't reasonable. Maybe they need to, maybe this community needs to take a look at other communities. I don't know what it is in Barnstable. I don't know what it is in other places, 200 in Barnstable, yeah. So anyway, so it is a dilemma, and you certainly, you know, want to be responsive to the community while also enforcing the Wetland Protection Act. So it's a dilemma that maybe just requires further discussion and further review as time goes by.
I mean, the regulations can be changed with public comments, with our public meeting, but I think this reflects a lot of thought on our part, and I don't think this was done arbitrarily or capriciously or without a lot of discussion. Because I think, if I remember correctly, I think we probably spit and thought about this more than just I think just about anything else in the regulations. And I'm not even going to go. I won't even address. I'm not going to even address the issue with money, and I'm not going to go there.
I'm not sure what you mean. You're not going to address what?
The comments are about the people who live on Bass River and have docks and spend a lot of money. It's like that is not our concern, number one. And number two, I mean, I think we tried our very best to try and make some sort of compromise between float size and jet ski lift, the components of the jet ski lift or jet ski float. And you know, the reality is that just because you have a jet ski float or jet ski lift doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to keep that you'll keep the jet ski lift elevated above the water. Because I often see people with them very, very low to the water. And so I think this is a good compromise between the efforts of what we're trying to do, reduce shading and take up less part of the public interest, and still provide for a recreational aspect of it as well.
Does anyone know what the regulation is in Dennis? We share Bass River with Dennis.
You know that, Rick? The 200?
I know that, but Mark Burgess is texting me right now. I can ask him.
And he has
You're
his
at a
hand up.
public meeting, Rick. No texting.
Maybe
I was gonna
they
say-
just ask him right now.
Karen, do you know? I mean,
It's larger. I'm not even sure there is a regulation to the size.
I would tend to
Float.
agree with that. I don't know
believe there
that
is a
Dennis does have
regulation
a.
Doesn't have a regulation about jet ski lifts and so on?
I don't think so. I don't know. don't do any business before Dennis does.
If I could just follow up with two things. One is that you had talked about a compromise between the jet skis and the floats. Well, the common float is 200 square feet. And if you bring the jet ski into the mix and the total is now 200 square feet, I don't see that as a compromise. I see that as a penalty on somebody who has a jet ski or recreational water vehicle of any sort. And then the second thing is, I've been coming to town hall since 1986. I've been involved with a lot of bylaws. I have yet to see a bylaw get easier as far as restriction. Once it's on the books, it is almost impossible to remove it from the books. So if you vote on it as it is, that's pretty much gospel. I have never seen anybody make things easier for anybody in a conservation or wetland situation over my 37 years of doing this.
We're doing that.
We just did that with the shellfish, much because of your comments. With shellfish surveys, we're requiring far less shellfish surveys than what we originally did, so.
So I lost some business by speaking up?
This isn't a bylaw, this is a regulation.
And this is the regulation, it's not the bylaw.
So the regulations are easier to change.
I guess if we keep an open mind in the future, as a result, that's something.
We could keep it as it is, and if it doesn't work, can we change our regulation for that part?
Yeah.
We could change our regulations whenever.
Yeah.
I mean, we can change regulations with one public meeting once a month if we wanted to.
So it's not like a bylaw, we have to go to the to the town meeting and.
No, that's exactly right.
A regulation that if we find it's not working, then we can have a meeting and then change it.
So, Rick, I believe that's 100% correct, David. I think Rick has got some information for us.
Mark Burgess tells me that Dennis only has a width limit, not a length limit. He also has his hand raised. Would like to come.
Well, we're not done with our in-person comments yet, so.
So we'll get to Mark. Hold on, we see
it. Really is complete, Mr. Manager.
I'm done for the moment. I made my point.
All right, so I don't think we have any further public comment in the room. So with that, Mark, I think Mark is the only person here, right?
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Great. Okay. I had some comments from last time, which Brittany stated some responses, but there was a couple of comments I had that weren't addressed at the last meeting, and I'd like to discuss two of the things tonight also. But it's only a few items of all the comments I submitted. The first one was regarding the filing with the DNR versus the filing of notice of intent with the commission. And what Harwich does is they just simply require you to go to the Waterways Commission first and then have them submit a letter, or you could actually come with a verbal that can be backed up later. But if we file the notice of intent and Waterways at the same time, the abutter notifications are going to get all messed up. So I would suggest that portion just be changed to that we have to go to Waterways first and come out of there with a letter before we even file with the commission. And that way, when we file, the abutter notifications go out that day and it doesn't get messed up.
Mark, I think you're confusing our abutter requirements with other towns. We don't require the date to be on the abutter notification. So whenever, so I think that's why I thought I addressed your comment, but we are going to continue to work with DNR. The NOI should be completed and final and submitted to both of us at the same time. And it's under them to have a meeting before our next meeting.
Okay, currently they only meet once a month.
They meet as needed.
Yeah. So do I have to file both at the same time? Because normally I would just meet with them and then forward that information in my filing to you. Am I violating something by holding off and just doing them first?
You should be filing them at the same time so that the information is exactly the same.
Okay.
Unless you have a reason to do DNR first.
Well, no, I would always go to Waterways first, because if they want to change the project, then I would come to you with a plan that they supported, as opposed to coming to you with a plan they don't and have to change it twice.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point, Mark. I mean, I don't, I don't remember too many times that Waterways has really changed something. But, I mean, that's not to say that that can't change either. I mean, I think we prefer that you would file at the same time. If for some reason the public hearing with with the Waterways just doesn't get done before Conservation Commission hearing, we would do what we typically do, is we just continue. We hear the filing under the wetlands, and we just hold for anything that would come up out of the Waterways Committee, which again I don't think we usually typically see any changes that change or require further discussion then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a big deal for us to, I mean, you can do it prior to or concurrently, as long as it's submitted to them. We need proof that you submitted it to them at the time you file with us.
Totally agree. The goal of any of that is just to make sure that we're through Waterways before we start discussing it at the commission level. I get it. Okay. The second one that I had misunderstood some things. So there's a regulation for the distance from other pier, well, the distance of a new pier, 250 feet, to a beach, for instance, a town beach. And my only comment there, other than what I wrote, was simply that what if there's another structure already between a proposed dock, let's say, and there's already another dock closer to 250 feet, an old one or something like that. Is that just something we'd ask for a variance from, or because of that instance? Or could you add language in that regulation that just says, no new pier within 250 feet unless there's a already existing permitted structure, in between, closer?
I think we would take everything on a case-by-case basis. That hasn't changed from our prior regulation, so I don't see a reason why we would change it. If you have a case like you're describing, we'd be happy to hear it and see why you should be able to build your dock there. But even if it's a licensed pier, it could have been licensed ages ago and no longer be in existence. So I don't think we are going to put that in the regulations saying if there's something licensed closer, you may go ahead and do it. We'd like to see a request for a variance.
Okay, no worries. The next one was about the boat list, which you've already talked about tonight. If I'm reading the corrected regulations correctly, that means that the boat lift is counted as part of the float, or whatever the square footage is. That's going to be problematic, and the reason I say that is because the outside framework of a boat lift could be over 200 square feet. So we don't limit the size of the boat at a dock. But I understand what you're saying. So I think the way through that is to say you either have 200 square feet of floats or a boat lift. You can't have both. And I think that accomplishes the goal of what you're trying to do, perhaps. But, the outside framework, and it's open when the boat's not there, of course, but the outside framework can be more than 200 square feet. If you have a 25 or 30 foot boat, and the boat is an 8 or 9 foot beam, frame is going to be bigger than 200 square feet. What do you think?
I think in that case, they would ask for variance. I mean, we have our float limit in there with the assumption that you will either have a float or a boat lift. So if you have a very, very, very large boat, I would encourage you to come and ask for a variance.
I just don't see them as. I understand that you don't want to have both at a dock. That makes complete sense. But I've done 3 or 4 boat lifts, and I think most of the frames are all 200 square feet. So, again, like what Karen was saying, by putting that in there, one, we have to do a variance, or it just makes it more difficult because of the way the regulation is worded. So if the goal is to simply say, look, we don't want 200 square feet of float and a boat lift, then just write it that way. I understand that.
I mean, you can have both if they're smaller than 200 square feet.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not saying I don't think we're saying that you can't have both. We're just saying if you're gonna have both, they can't exceed the 200 square feet. Make the decision then. Do you want more for a boat lift, or do you want more for float? Or is one not as important to you as the other? That's your decision, not ours.
I understand. What if every boat lift is more than 200 square feet?
Then we don't agree with it.
I don't think we'd be approving the boat lift at that point.
Well, I think that's going to be a problem, but I think having a boat lift, regardless of the size of it, is still a benefit, because when the boat's gone, you have an open frame with sunlight, and you have the 3-foot depth minimum requirement for the boat lift. The resource area is protected. Since you can't or don't regulate the size of the boat, then I just don't think it's fair or accurate to try to limit the size of the boat lift.
Well, my thought on that is it's a permanent structure that's taking up the public area of interest.
Yeah, but it's an open frame. It's not like a float that has shading impacts or anything like that. And the boat would be there on a float anyway. So it's better than having a float. So why restrict it worse then?
Well, it's only an open float when the boat's not on it, or open frame when the boat's not on it.
Yeah, but if it's a frame, it's still taking up navigational.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
The public domain there.
Well, yeah, that's the same as just having the boat docked, but when the boat is stored, it's above the water, so it's a better condition all around for everything. So why restrict it?
For access.
Huh?
So I have another way to look at this.
Yeah, Rick?
We've been very clear about our regulations limiting the width of our docks and the length of our docks, 80 feet and 4 feet. I think you can make the argument that these boat lifts are usurping the width limitation of our regulation, because they are added to, and the length, and because they are added to the structure. We haven't talked about that, but that's another point.
Well, the thing is that if I have a 200 square foot float, okay, and I have a boat of any size, and I pull that boat up against that float, it's perfectly okay.
Correct.
If I only have a jet ski and I decide, and I have a 200 square foot float, I can pull the jet ski up against the float and leave it there, but I can't lift it up out of the water with any kind of a device, a lift, for some reason.
We haven't said that yet.
Well, you do say it in terms of the additional size that you're saying it creates because of the lift attached to the float. So
Well,
it
it's
is.
attached to the float, Paul,
Yeah.
it's attached to the dock.
Pardon?
These mechanisms are attached to the dock, not the float. I mean, you have some plastic that they can drive up on, but that's what we're talking about here is a mechanical lift that's attached to the dock structure and electrically powered to lift this boat or the personal watercraft out of the water.
Well, sure, but you also tie a boat up to the more substantial
float.
structure.
Yeah.
Not only the
Well,
float.
they're two different things.
Yeah, but I think it appears to me, to be, and I have certain feelings about different kinds of these things, but it seems it's a little bit discriminatory in terms of somebody just wanting to lift their boat out of the water as opposed to pulling the boat up against the float. Somebody could say, hey, listen, I can only afford a jet ski. I can't afford a big, sports fisherman, and I can't take care of my jet ski the way I want to in terms of lifting it out of the water, because as Kieran said, it has to be lifted out of the water because of the propeller mechanism,
We'll get a jet ski float then. the jet ski float pulls the jet ski out of the water, so.
Up onto the
intake-
float.
It's onto a float, but it gets counted as part of the float system.
All right.
You know, the 200 square foot float system.
And maybe it's just, I'm not thinking about it the right way, but it seems to me any side boat is okay. All summer long, you could have it out there shading the bottom, the whole deal. But a jet ski lift is not okay. I thought we had a problem there was a jet ski lift that was installed that had a deck on it. And not all of them are like that. Some of them are just, you take the jet ski off and light still filters through because it's just probably like a forklift kind of a thing. Okay? But that seemed to me to more reasonably be a extension of the float. But some kind of a mechanism. I haven't seen too many of them. I do have a friend who has one on the dentist side, but it seemed to me it was just like a forklift kind of a deal. Okay, so I think we're. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be totally fair that the boat size is not regulated, but the jet ski lift, where you have to have something to get that jet ski out of the water. In a certain way is not allowable. It seems like a contradiction to me.
If I may, I would totally understand if somebody had a jet ski float, the one that Ed was talking about, where you drive the jet ski up onto a floating float, that should totally be incorporated in the 200 square foot maximum. I totally get that. And then to your point, if everybody can have a 200 square foot boat and maybe a 10 by 30 foot boat attached to that float, that's completely legal. And yet, if we can lift the boat out of the water, whether or not there's floats there or not, but if we can lift the boat out of the water, you've got the same amount of things there, meaning a float and a boat, but the boat is out of the water, which is an environmental benefit. So I agree with you that it seems counterproductive to penalize somebody for having a lift. So just use that comparison. A float with a boat, those are all allowed. So if the boat is on a lift, that's a better scenario for the environment. So it should be allowed in addition to the floats. But then you have two boats. So however you want to word it, but the boat lift shouldn't be penalized. You could even say if you're going to have a boat and a boat lift, then maybe only allowed 100 square feet of float. I get that, but you can't, you can't penalize somebody for having a boat lift because it's a better scenario than just having the boat sitting next to the float all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it hard to believe that you're going to be talking about that many boat lifts that have a 10 by 30 foot boat.
Well, maybe not, but even my boat was a 19-foot boat, and I had a 8-foot beam. That's almost 200 square feet, and the frame has to be larger than the boat so that the cradle fits, inside. The frame is larger than the boat.
Yeah, but it's still 200 square feet, and the fact remains is you can still always ask for a variance. That's not a guarantee, but you can ask for the variance. And, if you don't like the answer from that, then you also have the right to make an appeal to the Superior Court and DEP.
Well, you guys know how I feel about appeals. That just wastes time and money for both the town and the applicant. You want to avoid that at all costs. So I
would agree.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, I just don't think that the boat lift is a benefit. It should not be penalized. So I don't think you're going to find a boat lift that has a frame for a reasonable size boat where the frame, the outer rectangular portion of the frame, doesn't exceed 200 square feet. And you're going to run into trouble if you restrict it to that.
Thank you, Mark.
Question. When you keep talking about the boat lift and a jet ski lift, both those have to be attached to the pier, not the float, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
I just want to make that clear.
So they're really increasing the size of the overall structure with this
Of
thing.
the pier.
Yeah.
We're talking, completely different.
So we're trying to,
Okay.
we have the regulations that's, as Rick pointed out, the dock can't be any more than 4 feet wide, and the float
Right.
has to be 200. But if
Exactly.
you start adding a lift to it, all of a sudden, the overall size of the structure that we're trying to keep so that it's manageable for everybody to use the water starts increasing. So you're just gonna start encroaching on everything else.
Okay, thank you.
That's my take on it.
Spot on.
If I could, just one last point. Just to follow up on
Hold on, Mark, well, we're going back and forth between, if you
Yeah.
don't mind, it's just you and Kieran, so we'll go back and forth, if you don't mind, Mark.
No worries.
Go ahead, Kieran.
just to follow up on the thoughts about the jet ski float against the jet ski lift. I agree with everybody. A jet ski float is set in the water. It covers the bottom. It's exactly what you're trying to avoid. I can see 100% why that would be considered a float. A jet ski lift is attached on the side of the pier. You don't have it on the outside. You pull it in behind the float system. It's sat back from the ocean edge, so people traversing up and down the river or the ocean, they're not going to be interfered with it because this is behind the float. It's back another 10 feet where the pier is solid. I just don't understand why that is being restricted. It's a benefit to get it out of the water. I just don't understand why you want to think it makes sense to make it more difficult to put it in. It's a benefit. So that's all.
Anybody else? Mark, anything else?
I think we've beaten the horse with a sledgehammer on that one, so we'll move along. I only had two more, I think. So I had a comment on your 3,000 square foot wetland limit going down to 500. That wasn't mentioned at the last meeting. I mean, that doesn't really affect my work, but I'm worried about that because Harwich tried to increase their jurisdiction about the same amount, and the residents came out in swarms, and they were shot down at town meeting. Now, I don't know whether these regulations need to go to town meeting, but it creates a huge increase of the commission's jurisdiction. And while I agree with you that wetlands have to be protected, of course, what's good for the state is good for the gander. And I think people are going to see this as a huge increase in your jurisdiction with associated problems to go with it. That's just a comment.
All right, so I just want to address that, Mark. It's like, so, number one,
We did it.
I wish we'd stop comparing us to Harwich, because I don't know why Harwich is considered the end-all, be-all to commissions, and personally, I don't like the comparison, but the long and the short of it is there are at least, well, at least I know there's at least 4 commissions on the Cape that have 500 square foot minimum standards for a wetland size. So to say that, I mean,
And there are some that have no under limit. So some of them protect all wetlands of any size, which we didn't want to do.
So I think, I think the fact that, I mean, like, this is a regulation change. It's not subject to town meeting. The bylaw that's coming up in spring is subject to town meeting, and these will be addressed at the town meeting then in spring. So.
The last comment that I had, and I'm not trying to offend anybody by comparing you to Harwich. I've been involved in their change of regulations over a period of 2 years, and they struggled. They really struggled with them. And they're getting better and clearer, which yours are as well. It's just that's the one I've had the most recent and intense, if you will, involvement in. The last one was when you were discussing fertilizers, and I watched the meeting today, and Ed, I totally agree with you that if you ban fertilizers, it's almost impossible to enforce. And I can tell you of one circumstance where a commissioner went by and saw a nice green lawn, and they issued a variance. I mean, not a variance, they issued a violation. And the applicant was able to prove that he didn't fertilize the lawn. He just watered it quite a bit, and it was doing very well. So I agree that's a slippery slope. Where you ban fertilizers and nitrogen, as I commented, I believe that landscapers have already come up with an alternative kind of grass. Maybe Brittany knows about this, but it creates its own nitrogen or something. And I'm not a landscaper, I don't know, but there's always a way around these things. I love the idea of organic fertilizers, even though they have the chemicals in it as the nitrogen, as Brittany mentioned. But yeah, the banning fertilizers it's a tough one. People have done it. There are bans out there. I don't know how you enforce it. That was my only comment on that.
We did confirm with council that we do have the means to ban the fertilizers, especially within the 50, as many other towns do, and that's kind of something that we hope that is going to be implemented in mostly a preventative way, where we'd be putting that in special orders of the special orders of conditions in new projects. Like you said, it will be difficult to enforce, and I don't see how we will enforce it, but I hope that when people are reading the regulations and they don't realize that nitrogen is an issue, they will learn, and hopefully they will not use fertilizer when they're in the riverfront area or in the 50.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember you saying that. Okay, I guess that was basically it, all I had.
Okay, thanks, Mark. And just for the record, I'm not offended by being compared to Harwich Conservation. I just want to go on the record by, I don't mean to be starting a war across the pond here or anything.
No.
I have the utmost respect for my colleagues in Harwich as well, but anyhow, so that's...
I think that Barnstable has the best set of regulations I've ever read.
Oh.
They're
sucking up to you, isn't he?
Yeah, well,
Sounds like it.
Really sucking up.
Now, they were written before you were there, Ed.
Well, don't worry, we'll just cut that out of the final edits. Yeah.
Anyhow, all right. Everybody have a great holiday season if I don't talk to anybody.
All right, thank you, Mark.
Okay,
Anybody else
thank you.
have any comments, questions? Anybody else on Zoom?
I'd like to make one comment.
Oh, wait a minute.
Maybe should we?
Is that's still Mark?
Still Mark.
Okay.
Who's that?
Does it not say Mark Burgess? I
To
can't read
right?
that far away.
There is somebody up there with the
For you to
hand up.
get home?
Is your hand raised?
I did. Mark Sangiolo. Don't hold it against me, but I'm in Harwich. One thing that,
confused.
that stimulated my response just now was the nitrogen stuff and the fertilizing. And we're on the Herring River and have to deal with that too. One thing you may try, just a suggestion, send out a mailer to everyone on the waterfront or even to the whole town, whatever, saying, you'd appreciate if people didn't use the nitrogen fertilizer, because you'd be surprised how many people just are not aware of what their landscape people are using for their grass. That might be one way it could really have a big impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is in our plans. We have not had the capacity to do so yet, but we will try our best.
All right. Anybody else on Zoom? Anything else, Kieran?
I'm just a little bit stunned with going back from, the state regulation for wetlands is 5,000 square feet. The town has been 3,000 square feet, dropping down to 500 square feet. Even though some towns have it, that's a substantial drop. How about considering 2,000 or 1,000, but 500? I mean, 500 is half the size of this area. It really is very, very small. And, jurisdiction, town of Yarmouth is not easy in the jurisdictions, as it is. Going down to 500 square feet, and as I say, yes, I understand other towns have that regulation. That doesn't mean Yarmouth has to do exactly the same thing. But, the state is 5,000 square feet. You now want to drop it down to 1/10 of what the state requirement is. I can understand maybe 50%, 75%, 10%. It's substantially different. Thank you.
Okay. All right. If there's no further discussion then, unless somebody,
Did you have a question, David?
Hmm?
Oh, I thought David had a question.
Just more of a comment. I just want to say I'm still kind of confused. I don't know where I stand with the lift, the boat lift, not the boat lift, but the jet ski lift.
We can vote on that separately, unless you don't want to do that.
Well, I mean, we can. I mean, if there's enough concern amongst the board that, so what will we be parsing this into then? To vote one on the regulations without
I mean, I
jet ski
think
float or
the commission
boat
should.
lift?
What were you saying, Brittany?
I think the part that Kieran and Mark were arguing is that are included in the 200 square foot float limit.
Right.
Whether to keep that.
But the floats is not where these,
It doesn't say anything where.
they will go on the piers.
So if they go on the piers, are they counted as 200 square feet afloat?
It, right now, as written, all jet ski lifts and personal watercraft. 24, the highlighted bit.
Thank you.
So it's 14 and 15. So 14 personal watercraft, including jet ski and modular floats, shall be included within the 200 square foot combined float limit. Personal watercraft, including jet ski floats, shall not be attached to the landward side of a float unless it meets the 3-foot depth of water requirement. And then number 15, personal watercraft, including jet ski lifts and boat lifts, shall have no decking, cover, walls, or roof, and are included in the 200 square foot combined float size limit.
So I think, if I can go back, I think 14, we all agree, should be within the 200 square foot because it's a...
It's a float.
It's a second float. It's number 15, I think, that Karen and Mark and, I don't know if Paul was or not, questioning, because it was going to be further away from, on the landward side of the floats and off the dock, not off the floats. I think it's number 15 that's in question. Not in question, but is being discussed.
All right, so we're looking at possibly taking a vote right now to see whether or not we should incorporate
Just the highlighted and are included.
3.0112, number 15, is that correct?
Yeah, I think the commission agrees on shall have no decking, cover, walls, or roof. Is that correct?
Yes.
So I think we'd be voting on the additional highlighted portion that says and are included in the 200 square foot combined float size limit.
Say that one more time.
The part in question is that jet ski lifts and boat lifts are included in the 200 square foot float limit. Or if you want, that is how it's written right now in the revised regulations, but that's the point that Mark and Kieran were discussing with the board.
Is it worthwhile considering each one of these requests for a lift on a case-by-case basis? Because they're all different, evidently. In some, the position would be different in all cases. They would not by definition all interfere with navigation or any other restriction that possibly, again, they'd be considered that people come before us and say, I want to put a jet ski and I'm going to have a deck on it. We return to that idea. And so the commission would say, well, you can have the jet ski, but you can't have the deck on it. You have to have this kind that allows light into when the jet ski is off of it, and so on. You know the example.
Yeah, that's definitely an option. I think the point that Rick and Ellie are making is that it's no matter where you put the lift, opposed to tying the boat in the water, that's temporary. The lift takes up the amount of space in the water permanently, whether the boat's there or not. When the boat's not there, there's light penetration, but no one else can travel in the space where the boat lift is.
Have that discussion every single time somebody comes in wanting a jet ski lift. Because, normally people are not going to know. The problem with them is that they're attached to the structure of the float, the
dock.
And the comparison of, I have a boat that's 18 with a beam of 18 feet long with a 8-foot beam, and that's okay. You can every single time. So maybe it should be a case-by-case basis.
It's definitely an option.
The floats around Bass River are all, they're not all identical. They're not all in the same kind of structure in terms of where they are in the river and so on. So maybe it should be a case-by-case kind of situation.
So
The thing is, the boats and the floats can be removed. This cannot. So it just can't be removed.
What do you mean by can't be removed, that they're all year round?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But there wouldn't be a jet ski on it then.
No, there wouldn't be a jet ski on it, but it's still, when you look at the overall size, well, I shouldn't go that way. All these things can be, they're temporary, they can be removed. This is a permanent structure that's left there that will block any access for other people to use that waterway.
Depending upon where it is.
Shell fishermen probably can't use it.
Well, they don't
Okay,
go
they
out
can't-
that far into the water.
No, they go around the docks.
Yeah, but.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, well, whatever. I think I've made my
Yeah.
position known.
Yeah, I mean, you
There's a
should
storm
definitely vote
coming.
on it.
You can remove a boat and a float, you can't remove this.
Well, you can, probably.
No, they're,
So, am I,
I don't know.
I need somebody to make a motion as to what do you want me to,
Yeah.
do you
Make-
want
I'll make a
to, do you want,
motion.
hold on, do you want to make a, or do you want to vote, and so somebody tell me what you want to vote on. It's like, do you want to vote on number 15 alone?
I think so. And then the whole thing.
And then, okay, so would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that number 15 would read, personal watercraft, including jet ski lifts and boat lifts, shall have no decking, cover, walls, or roof, period.
Second.
And,
Okay, 1 second.
and we're not including the included 200 square foot, is that
Right.
correct?
Right.
Okay. And did I get a second, Paul? All right, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
I'm abstaining.
We need more votes.
4, 5. Huh? What do you mean you can't vote?
Yes, you can.
You can vote.
Then yay.
Which one?
You're a yay?
Yeah.
So far, there are 3 yays.
4 yays and,
Are you saying yay?
Can I just bring up another point? So this
for you.
would knock it back into our regulations for the docks. Excuse me, yes, the docks or the
Yeah.
piers. Because we're saying it's not going to be in the float, they're going to be on the piers. So it would change our regulations on
We would consider them under the permit where they apply for the dock and the boat lift.
Okay,
so we're striking the 200 square foot combined float size limit.
Correct.
Okay,
Going away
that's
from
the
the
only thing we're
floats for
doing.
Okay. Okay.
What was
Fine
the
with me.
What was the vote?
So it's 4,
So you're a yay
5.
also?
Yes.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, where are you?
5, and then no, and 1 abstention.
Okay.
All right, so
We're a yes?
Yes. 5 to 1 with 1 abstention.
So you're going to change, do we need to change, we can just accept this?
Just strike that, yeah.
We'll strike, and are included in the 200 square foot combined float size limit.
Yes. Remove that.
We'll strike that. And then at that point, we are ready then to
Doesn't matter.
make
you
a
can still
motion
make a statement.
to accept the regulations as written with this one
change.
To be filed with the clerk.
What's that?
To be filed with the town clerk for promulgation.
Yes, there you go. Sounds good.
Would you
Right.
say, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Just the motion should be to accept the regulations to be filed with the town clerk
Okay.
with an effective date of January 1st, 2024.
Okay, would somebody like to make it that motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Abstain. Just don't know enough about.
Okay, so six for, 6 in favor
Right.
and 1 abstention.
Yep.
Passes.
So you said filed with town clerk and then effective January 1st?
Yes.
Okay, just writing my notes.
So clarification, effective January 1st, was this a regulation or was this a town?
This is regulation.
It's a regulation.
This is regulation, so they become effective January 1st.
So included in this was the reduction from 3,000 square feet to 500 square feet?
That is
Includes
included.
the 3,000 down to 500, but it removes lists some 200 square foot.
I didn't realize the commission had the power to go from the 3,000 down to the 500 by themselves without having to go in front of the town.
Well,
It was
it's
just a
also going
definition.
into the bylaw, but yeah, we can, because we make so we can make the regulations to address what the law states. So we are going to be changing the replication, and we're also going to be changing jurisdiction over the what minimum wetland size. So that'll all be part of the bylaw that's addressed at spring town meeting.
So if people showed up at the town meeting and they were upset with the 500 square feet, they could shoot down all of the regulations?
They can't
No,
shoot
these
down the
aren't-
regulations, they can shoot down the bylaw.
Shoot down the bylaw, but isn't this?
So the bylaw includes vegetative wetlands, and we're allowed to define the wetland in the regulations, which is what we changed, the definition of the wetland.
Okay, good. The one thing I didn't catch was the new regulations in the flood zone. Are you now regulating that? Have you got performance standards?
We are. I can,
I apologize, I didn't get this one.
I don't know if you want me to go over them, or,
I think we agree, if you don't mind. I apologize for keeping the board the few minutes. And you've already voted on it, so it doesn't matter.
I was going to say, perhaps you'd like to just take one of these and take a read?
Pages are.
I don't know what page. General
I did make sure with town council that all of our regulations were okay.
We're gonna get screwed. Screwed with those boatlets.
It's basically what we've been enforcing, just put to words. Try and contain stormwater, and we did also add a tree replacement. So any tree larger than 3 inches has to be replaced in the flood zone now. So more general guidelines. So we have fewer angry neighbors.
Any tree within 3 inches.
It says greater than 3 inches.
You could have 100 of those on a site that's just
Approved 2 lots over 80 feet.
and any tree, any vacant lot within 4 inches of trees on it.
Within reason.
Those, but 3 inches.
That's what we have in there, but if obviously we're not going to be able to fit that many on a lot that size, you can substitute for shrubs or similar.
It does widen them, but they,
Maybe consider some money for the shellfish. Let's say I have a 100 by 100 foot lot. It's in a flood zone. I'm going to cut out the middle
Yeah.
for the house. If I don't cut out all the outsides of it, then I'm not going to have a place to put the mitigation trees that are required. Even bushes. I want this place. No bushes in there, so.
That's true.
There's not enough space left on the lot to add that kind of mitigation.
I think we were thinking of already developed lots where you're doing raise and replace or things like that. We'll have to think about further if we need to develop these more for undeveloped lots in the flood zone.
All right, thank you, Karen. All right, next order of business is other business with approval of meeting minutes for November 16, 2023.
I read them, and they're fine after 2 typos were corrected.
I fixed the typos.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Next order of business is a request for Conservation Commission support letter from the Friends of Bass River Headwaters Restoration Project, including wetlands, fish habitat restoration, undersized culvert replacement at Weir Road. I'm sorry, Mr. Bishop, we have run out of time, and we're going to have to ask you back the next time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Rick Bishop, Executive Director, Friends of Bass River, and I'm here this evening to ask that the Conservation Commission write a letter of support for our Upper Bass River Headwaters Restoration Project. Specifically, we are in the midst of a CZM application to fund the Weir Road culvert replacement with a bridge and fund the restoration of 57.2 acres of retired cranberry bogs. We are now just about to submit our application, and support from the Conservation Commission would be much appreciated.
What is the grant called?
It's a coastal zone management restoration grant.
Okay, you're not sure which one.
No, and a fish habitat as well. We're reestablishing the historic fish habitat at the end of Mill Pond. 1853, it was the second largest herring catch in all of Massachusetts, and we are at 0 right now, so we're going to, part of this project will reestablish that.
If we don't ruin the rest of the river
Anybody have any
first.
questions for Mr. Bishop?
In my lifetime.
All right.
I make a motion, we write a letter of support for the Friends of Bass River project.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Unanimously.
6-0.
Yeah, 6-0.
6-0, right? I'm sorry, yeah, 6-0.
What happened to this?
Last item is other business not reasonably anticipated.
I have a question for Brittany. Any luck on the replacement for Catherine?
We have some applications. We had one interview, which went very well.
Okay.
All of the other applications came after the interview, so I have not looked at them yet.
All right, so we have some applicants and
Light at the end of the tunnel.
yeah, and have interviewed at least one.
Yes, we have interviewed one.
Just wanted to keep up to date with that.
Thanks.
Otherwise, David has a new job.
So we get for sitting there.
That's why I don't sit there anymore.
Just want to know, it's just a minute or two.
All right, anybody else? Anything else?
This is just going back on the float thing.
No? Pat, did you say? Did you? No. I just-
She's mumbling
I
over
just
there.
wanna- You're allowed to mumble at will. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to cut the
Make it
meeting off
record.
without any of that. Okay. If not, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
You got it right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimous. We stand adjourned at 7 p.m.